Hey, this is Denlyn Blake. All right. I'm really excited right now. I kind of toned down a little bit, but I just had another experience with God. Okay. And I'm here to tell you that there's power in consistency. Okay. Um, it's crazy right now because I just had a spiritual download. Okay. And I'm gonna backtrack. I'm gonna tell you my life story. Literally, God just told me I need to be shooting some videos. Okay. Um, Let me backtrack a week ago. Well, not a week ago. I went to, it's like the 19th of, was that August? I went to podcast movement. Okay. If you don't know what podcasting is essentially, like your own talk show. People have it on iTunes, they have it on Stitcher Radio. But anyway, so even how I got to that point, it is a testimony, okay? But while I was at Podcast Movement, I was listening to Cliff Ravenscraft, and he's known as the podcast Answer Man, and he was talking about speaking, you know, really speaking to people, speaking to their hearts, and don't worry about the money. Period. You should be doing it because you love people. And if you don't love people, you shouldn't be in this business. Okay. And I heard God say a second time, because the first time I kind of dismissed it. He said, serve my people. So I'm like, God, I don't even know what you mean. What are you talking about? Because I'm going to be doing my podcast for authors and speakers. Okay. That was my mission. Sometimes God changes direction of where you're thinking you're going to be going. All right. And at first, I had no idea what it means. So when I'm coming back from Dallas, I call my spiritual mother up. I was like, look, I don't know what's going on, but God just gave me a message, and I heard it twice, clearly. Okay. And he said, serve my people. I need to know what I mean. The communication wasn't that, it took like a week before we could actually got together. Another friend of mine, Lorraine Daniel, awesome woman of God. So we were spoken. I was like, listen, I don't know what it is. 'Cause, sometimes God has that tendency to, drop one word in your spirit and don't give any more explanation. Okay. But this morning I had some clarity. I had a breakthrough. And at that time, I wasn't even looking for that. But I'm telling you, when I say there's power and consistency, there is. Okay. And I'm so excited right now. Okay, because there's things that is happening in my life. I'm at the ground floor level. So let me backtrack so you get a clear understanding of what has happened to me. Around June, okay, I think it's around June, I started to get up and listen to Dr. Cindy Trim. Okay. Because I was like, in my house, my husband and I, okay, we were kind of like, we were rifting a bit, okay, and I was like, look, I know something got to change. I know I need to be praying, okay, and I'm like most people at the time, because I'm like, oh yeah, I know I need to be reading the Bible, or I know I need to be praying, and I just was lagging. And so my spiritual life was up, down, up, down. Sometimes in spiritual high, you go to church and you feel all excited. Okay. And I was like, no, I cannot take what is going on in the atmosphere. I needed to change. So this is what I started to do. I started to schedule and set the alarm clock up. So I would get up in the morning, okay, to pray. And so I had set my alarm clock for like 5:30, So I was getting up at 5:30, and I would play Dr. Cindy Trim, the atomic prayer, okay. And let me tell you, at first I was going to do it for 21 days, and then 21 days came, and I was like, man, this is just awesome. So I continued to do it for 30 days, and I was just letting it play in the background, okay, and I was getting on my knees, and sometimes I was praying in the spirit, okay, And I'll tell you this, June 27th, I went to my first networking event. All right. And from that, I met a woman there, and she was like, Chichina, she speaks at, a shelter in Pasadena. Okay, I'm in Houston, so it's not too far from where I stay. And I was so excited. I was like, sure, I'll come and speak. Okay. So I go to speak. And from the first networking event, so that's how I knew it was a God thing. Okay. This don't happen to everybody. So hear me out. Okay. So I went from that. Okay. And it all didn't click at the time that it was all related back to the prayer. But when I started seeing different things happening in my life, I realized that it was that prayer. So I had finished, because I was like, at first I was going to do it for 30 days, just doing that prayer, but I was still praying, right? And I was like, man, I need something stronger, okay? So I came across something else by Dr. Cindy Trim. And this time, I decided I was going to write it out, because I'm like, I need to say it, because if it's possible that I was consistently just praying that and started a shift in my life, what would happen if I started saying it? Okay, so there's a prayer that she has. It's called the Entrepreneurial Declaration. Okay, that's the whole version of it. When I first came across it, somebody had like a snippet of it. I took the snippet and I wrote about 10 minutes and 54 seconds of it, right? And because, I was transcribing by hand, okay, because I was like, I need to get this in my spirit. And so at times I would repeat the 10-minute section, and then at that break point, especially when I found the 30-minute version of it, I would let that part play out, okay? And sometimes God would tell me in my spirit to say it 3 times, okay? I'm telling you, this is 5:30 in the morning when I'm starting to do this, okay? And I went from that, all right? I went from that to, I just came back, again, like I said, from Podcast Movement. And I met some key people in the industry, people that I have been listening to for months, okay? When I came back from Podcast Movement, I saw Dr. Cindy Trim live. Now, I did not see that on Facebook, okay? I didn't see it on social media. I was driving down the street of my old neighborhood, and there was a big billboard up. And I said, what? She's going to be here? Listen, I got on the phone. I told my friends, because I was like, look, this cannot be coincidence, okay? So when I say there is power and consistency, there is. But I'm going to backtrack and give you a little bit more than that. Okay, because you probably don't know some of my experiences. And so how when I heard that there's power in consistency, okay, and how my spiritual mentor actually told it to me, she said, in consistency, there's a key. And she used to tell me this, that what you do in one area of life spills over into the next one. So if you're lazy in one area, it's going to spill over into the next area. It is. So for me personally, okay, I'm about to get intimate and transparent with you, okay? It's tender for me, okay, because I feel that, because I'm about to expose myself. So how I ended up living with my spiritual mother was simply this. I literally left from college, Christian college, and I joined the military. While I was in the military, I lost my mind. I was just like, oh, freedom, because I grew up in a, kind of like a religious background, okay? Was always in the church. I mean, literally always in the church. Sunday, Wednesday, yeah, it was like that. I was always in the church. Okay, so I lost my mind. I mean, I went to college, but you know, it was still kind of got some freedom. But when I joined the military, I went back a while. Okay, so I was struggling with homosexuality. Okay, and so when I was, whew, mm, it this testimony, I know some people gonna give me some flack for it, but it ain't about you. This is my testimony, so there ain't nothing you could do about it. Okay, my personal experience with God. So take it how you want. Okay, and whew, it's tender for me. Okay, it's tender. I went uh, through a spirit of depression really bad because I was getting ready to go to Iraq, and this was scary for me because I had just left from college 5 months later. You know, I'm at Fort Hood, Texas. Okay. And next thing I know, October coming, my name is on the roster. Hey, you going to Iraq? You know, I did not think that I was going to go to Iraq. But let me tell you, while I was in Iraq, I really felt it hard. I was depressed. I had suicidal thoughts. I mean, really, really bad. And my eyes was watering up because this is the truth. Okay. And because I'm exposing myself. Okay. And I went from that, you know, when I came back, okay, I was depressed. Some other stuff was going on in my life. Um, and I started using ecstasy. Mind you, I'm still in the military. Started using ecstasy, you know, followed a friend to do something, you know. I let the fact that I had bad finances, you know, my credit was out of whack, and I was like, man, I got to do this. I got to get this money. Okay, let me tell you something. I told you I grew up in a Christian home, okay, that I was always in the church. And I remember praying this one prayer. I said, God, stop me before I go too far. Be careful of that particular prayer. Because I'm telling you, as soon as I started, it was as soon as it ended. Okay? And I can remember this because I can't say it was August 8, 2007. I'm not sure the date. I know this for sure. It was, I think it was like a Thursday night. Okay? And it was close to Labor Day weekend. Woo! Okay. Labor Day weekend just had passed. God, you know what you're doing. So this is a true story, okay? And we get pulled over by the cops, and I'm telling you, my heart was pounding so fast. I was scared out of my mind because it went from I'm going to get this money that part wasn't even a concept about, you know, getting pulled over by the cops, because I was like, man, I need to get this money. So I found myself in a jail cell. Because I'm like, man, I'm in the military. I need to be at work for, you know, Tuesday morning, basically. Right? I didn't even make it. 30 days. Was it 30 days? Man, I think I still spent more than 30 days there. It's been a while. Okay? And, you know, I had a public defender. You know, first time, forget the judge, right? Was, you know, she threw out a sentence and she was rough. Okay, so mind you, I'm on probation. Okay, and I'm like, with the shame, I have to go back to my unit. You know, they had just spoke about, you know, drug charges. You know, don't get caught up in that stuff. So you imagine the shame. Matter of fact, I had orders to go to Germany. I missed my time because I was, you know what? So it must have been 3 months. Because I had orders to go to Germany. I think it was like December 18th or something like that, or December 1st. I can't remember the dates right now. And I knew I missed it because I couldn't report back. So by the time I got out of court, okay, and got released, Germany was out the window. So I really had to go back to my unit. Okay, so I'm like, man, just let me get out, because the whole shame of it all, I didn't want to stay in. All right. So they gave me a general discharge or whatever, and um, I'm out there doing whatever I need to do. But it's like, even though I had prayed in there, and there I had clarity while I was in jail and stuff like that, but it was like, God kind of get me out of that situation, that type of stuff. I wasn't sold out at that moment. Okay. And so eventually what happened to me was this. Now mind you, I'm doing everything in my power to stay on the straight and narrow, so to speak. But mind you, I'm still dabbling with homosexuality. I just wasn't at a point yet where I could even give that up. Okay. And whew, it was like I was still kind of on the fence, and man, I had the worst parole officer ever. This guy was like serious, mean. His mindset was like, hey, if you here on a drug charge, all y'all guilty. Now, mind you, I'm not dabbling with drugs, because I'm like, look, when you on probation, I'm gonna tell you this: you better be like a Christian, because you can't go to the club, you can't be caught drinking, you can't do nothing. Literally, go home, stay home, don't don't do nothing. Okay. So I'm like, man, when I read it, I was like, this is like being a Christian. I'm like, ooh, and it was times was hard. Money was hard to get. Okay, because now I'm out the military. I wasn't getting paid. I thought I was gonna get some money. Those 3 checks, they took it. Okay, then they took back some other money. So I'm crunched. I'm going up to labor ready. Okay, if you don't know what day labor is, getting up there at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm up there working, trying to get a job. Okay, scrunging to get some money. Okay, but there was even some blessings in that. But let me tell you this. So apparently my probation officer, he's calling, and I'll tell you no lie, it's not an exaggeration. I had a cell phone. But what was mandated was that I had a phone in the house, and that was the number he was calling. Now, nobody uses that. Everybody in the house got a cell phone, right? Let me tell you that the house phone went dead, and he had put me on what you call that? He gave me like 3 weekends in jail. Matter of fact, one of those weekends was my birthday. I was so upset. My last weekend. And he said, oh, I'm just being lenient on you because I could have given you 4, but I'm giving you 3. And I'm just like, this man is wicked. That's what I'm thinking, because I'm like, I really wasn't doing anything. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was like, look, dude, I will bring you the phone. He said, I don't want to hear. I was like, look, I'll show you that the phone is broken. That man was not trying to hear it. It was rough. Okay? So, mind you, he put that offense on. And let me tell you, you mess with them people and they get in your life, it's going to be rough. Okay? So, they stack all them stuff against you when it's time. So, I told you I was struggling. So I didn't even have no lights on in my house, nothing. So I'm staying at one of my friend's house, which is like a block away. Stuff is still in my house. So apparently he must have went there, and it doesn't look like somebody was staying there. So, man, he signed me up to go to probation. I didn't have no water in my house, no lights in my house. I was roughing it. Okay, let me tell you how bad I had it. Okay, at one point when I was staying in that apartment, it was a tiny rinky-dinky apartment. Okay, it like one of them little duplexes, like a whole bunch of them community. Okay, I didn't even have a bed. All I had was my duffel bag. Okay, and the type of closet that I had, there was a part in there that was narrow, and I put the duffel bag in that section. I would lay my head down in there. Okay, and the other side was kind of like open, more closet space, and that's how I used to sleep. And somebody was kind enough to give me a bed. This is a true story. I'm watering up because I'm telling you the truth. This is what I had to go through. And my rent was like $270, okay? And sometimes I was struggling to make that $270 because the jobs at Labor Ready wasn't consistent, okay? Mind you, I got a record. So it's hard for me to find work, okay? Um, and then I went from that because, after that situation, he writes me up and he's like, oh, she need to go to prison. When I saw the paperwork that they put on me, it was like 26 different things, like A through whatever, reasons why I need to go to prison. And the judge gives me 3 years. And I'm in shock. I'm like, what? This is my first offense. Military didn't count. None of that even counts. Okay. So I find myself in prison. Woman's prison. Real talk. Okay. And I'm talking about you in there with people that's going to do life. Criminals, women that kill their lovers. It's serious. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was real. Like, I'm gonna tell you, when I was getting checking in, like registration, I can't even remember what they called it, but I remember one of the ladies there, she said, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. This white lady was telling me that I don't belong here, because they're like, because they ask these questions, have you been to college, what type of jobs you had, because they're trying to get an assessment of who they have in their system. I knew I didn't fit in there. I wasn't like the other people there, but I had to assimilate at that moment in time to survive. Okay. But let me tell you what I did while I was there. I would read. They had a library, and that was my saving grace. And I would get my hands on whatever I could possibly get my hands on and read it. Because I was like, look, I do not want to come back to this place ever again. This sucker for the birds. And let me tell you, my mom didn't know. I didn't tell anybody. Okay, I'm literally in prison. I'm watching people get commissary and all that. That wasn't even an option. I ain't had no money on coming up my books. Okay, and let me tell you what the prison hustle was. The prison hustle was, you would talk to men, right? Write them up. I mean, chicks that stud bras that writing, lying to these dudes or whatever so they could get some money, promising that they were gonna be with them. I didn't do that stuff. Nah, I didn't do that stuff. Let me tell you what happened to me. I I remember I was staying at Woodman, because it's a true story. Okay, I was at Woodman, and this young lady, she had stayed like a bunk across from me. Okay, she said, I don't want nothing from you. She was like, I just feel compelled to give you this. T-shirt and some commissary food. Now, mind you, in prison, you're not supposed to be doing that, but it was so hot there. It was so hot that at night we would take our shirts. Okay, it's an emotional story for me. We'll take our shirts, wet it, okay, and that would be the AC, because I did not have a fan. You can't. All that stuff was on commissary, so you couldn't do nothing about it. And she was like, I feel like God told me to give it to you. Soon after that, she went to like somewhere else. So I knew that even there, that God was blessing me. Okay. So I finally get out, and mind you, I only spent like 9 months. But my story don't stop there, because I had gotten a letter, because I'm from the Caribbean. I'm West Indian. Okay. I'm from the islands. And so I get a letter saying basically immigration gonna come pick me up. I got laughed, because it's crazy. It's a crazy true story. Okay. So I go from that. I leave from the military, go to prison, okay, and then I find myself in immigration in Houston. That's how I got to Houston. True story, okay. And I was like, look, I don't want to fight this. As a matter of fact, I don't want my mom to know what's going on, because all the time I still didn't tell nobody, right? I don't want nobody to know. And really at the time, me and my mom wasn't even really getting along, because I was like, look, I don't really want her to know what's going on. I was still harboring a lot of some ill wishes for stuff that happened in the past. But it's like God put things in your way. So there was, so I basically was like, look, I don't want to fight this. I'm ready to go get deported. And so somehow, people keep talking about this attorney, Shiva Gill, right? And they're like, this one girl, she was like, look, you just need to talk to this lady, because she's very, very good. you know. So I speak to her, and look, I don't got no money to give her because you know what I'm saying, I'm broke. Like nobody knows where I'm at, none of that stuff. My family don't know. Okay, so she looks at my case. She said, "This is your first offense?" I was like, "Yeah." You know, right now I was supposed to be on parole, right? But immigration came and got me, so that didn't even matter right now, right? Because I was like, man, if I go back home, I don't have to worry. She said, look, you could beat this case. But what she did was she let me represent myself, okay? Because she was like, if anything happens in this course that you don't win, at least I could come back and do an appeal. So she prepped me so I could do this. Okay, so I go from that. Okay, I won my case. I won my case. But while I was in immigration, this is where my first encounter comes. So I meet this young woman from some country in Africa that speaks Spanish. I cannot remember what it's called, but you know, she was dark skinned. So I was like, what, you speak Spanish? Like I had never heard of it, right? So mind you, we're in immigration with a whole bunch of you know, Mexicans, because it's Houston, okay? People jumping over the borders. That's usually what most people offenses were, okay? But this young lady, because at the time I was getting up early in the morning praying, okay? And this is what I'm talking about, consistency. So I'm getting up in the morning, and I had this conviction that I need to stop listening to worldly music at the time. Okay, so I cut that out. That's just what I was doing. Okay, then I went from that to, you know, watching like Joel Osteen, Creflo Dollar. I was doing this consistently, you know, while everybody's still asleep. Okay, now I think they used to feed us like 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that. I would stay up and I'll be praying. Okay, so this is like consistency. Okay, but when I had met this young woman, this is when I got introduced to people with gifts, okay? And I was like, man, you know, she's speaking in tongues. I did not grow up speaking in tongues, so I didn't even believe in it, okay? So I gotta laugh because God has the ability to show you something, even if you don't believe it. Experience, okay? And I remember we would get together consistently, and she would pray in the spirit. It was her, and I remember this other older African lady, right? And I remember one day, I was just like, I look back on my life, and I think I was like standing by the bathroom mirror, and I said, God, this is it. I see it, okay? It took 3 years of me just acting buck wild, and this is where it landed me. I went from prison to immigration. I was just like, that's it. That's it. You know, so I was like, I'm all yours. It's done. And mind that I used to struggle with homosexuality, and I just remember it just like this, that it went away. This was something I used to cry about for years because it's a struggle. If people that's homosexual tell you that they love it, I'm telling you it's a lie. Okay, they are uncomfortable, they'll cry about it, but they will never tell you about it. Okay, a lot of them are depressed. I'm gonna tell you the facts, okay, because it's usually some type of deeper issue from the childhood that happened. And I just remember being free from that. Okay, so I went from that to now I'm on parole, and so my attorney, she finds a shelter for me to stay at. So I'm at the shelter for 3 months. Okay, and I'm homeless, you know, because I don't got no place to stay. I don't know nobody in Houston, none of that, right? So I meet this lady there, and we would get up in the morning, like I tell you, prayer, consistency, okay? And we would get up, and at the time we're walking in a circle and do these early morning prayers, okay? And they were praying in the spirit. At this time, I'm still not praying in the spirit because I don't know how to. I don't know how to pray in tongues, okay? And I remember one day my roommate, she says to me, why don't you ask God for praying in the spirit, the gift of speaking in tongues? And, you know, she could be a little bit controversial, so I was like, I didn't really want to get into her. I was just like, I didn't want to tell her I didn't really believe in it. And I'm going to tell you, this is true story. This is what happened to me, my experience. I remember the Holy Spirit kept harassing me right after she said that. So I'm in a room and I had this devotional by Kenneth Copeland. And the Holy Spirit kept saying, turn to speaking in tongues. And I'm arguing with the Holy Spirit because I'm like, look, there's nothing in here about speaking in tongues. Then lo and behold, there's like 4 sections in there about speaking in tongues. So I get down on my knees and I'm like, look, God, I don't know what you're talking about. Because you know how I didn't grow up believing it. Next thing I know, I'm speaking in tongues. I did not believe in speaking in tongues. So this was the first manifestation to me that it doesn't matter what situation that you're in, no matter what circumstance, that God can do whatever he want to do at whatever time. And some of it don't even require your belief. Real talk. But I got connected to this woman of God. And so she ended up being my mentor. We kind of separated for a bit, but I was still in contact with her. And I ended up staying with her. And I was up underneath her for like a whole year. Okay? And let me tell you, for effective change to come in any person's life, it usually has to be for a year. Okay? And I didn't even, it was rough. Okay, because sometimes she was not an easy woman, okay, to live with, and she told me that ahead of time. She wasn't easy to live with, but I had a lot of moments with God with her, okay, and I left from that. So now I'm fast forwarding today, okay, because I'm like, man, I really need to get back to praying, okay. So June, like I said, I was praying. Okay, then I had my first networking event, then ended up started speaking from that. Okay, so I consistently started praying. Okay, when I got to Pasadena and I started speaking, my second week I met Lorraine Daniel. Okay, and I heard her say something about legacy and you have to write a book. And, I felt that she was talking to me like in less than 2 minutes and she was already preaching. Okay. And I'm like, man, this woman's powerful, so I need to get connected with her. So we started chit-chatting it up, like not sometimes we weren't talking every single day, but it was just like, it was like a connection, but it was a God thing, okay? And let me tell you some of the trends that I noticed. One, you got to do something consistently, right? Then the next thing is that you need to associate yourself with people who are doing what you want to get done. Okay, like-minded people. Okay, and so I ended up doing that, and she had a 21-day challenge, which we just finished. Okay, we finished on Labor Day, but in the process of that, because mind you, we used to get up at 5:30, get on the call praying, okay, and then getting the word from God. And God showed me a lot during that time. But another thing that I was working on, I was like, man, first I was going to do a book, right? And so I just came back from Podcast Movement because I think we had already started, and I just came back from Podcast Movement, and I was like, look, I need to put out a course. So I'm like, man, I'm going to do a course. So I finished this course at when 21 days finished. So I was like, maybe it took me like 2.5 weeks because I was like, I need to get this done. And so I did more in 21 days, all right, than I had did for months because I was like, man, I'm coming up with a podcast and I need to get this done. And I was just letting fear and letting excuses get in the way, that the fact that I had a baby at home get in the way. But let me tell you, those 21 days, powerful. But one of those other things that I learned in that process was the command to love, okay? And it's going to be hard sometimes to love people because let me tell you, again, true story, what happened to me after those 21 days, and the devil will definitely come to test you. This white man calls me up from one of my videos on YouTube and called me a dumb nigga. And I was ready to go off on him. I really was. But it was like I could keep hearing the whole time God telling me, you need to maintain. But I was like a little bit of shock because I'm married to a white man. I have a mixed baby. I'm like, this man don't know me from Adam. Like, really? But I will tell you this, I kind of spoke to him in dialect for a bit, but I didn't cuss him. I did not cuss him. But I was in shock because I'm like, look, this man don't know me from, and I realized this was pointless because, he was racist and he wanted to maintain his mindset. And I was like, you know what? God bless you. Have a good day. It shocked me. It shocked me that I didn't cuss him out. But like I said, I was doing a 21-day challenge. And so now, because I was consistently praying, even at that time when I was doing the 21-day challenge, in order for me to finish the podcasting course that I was doing, I needed to get up at 3:30 because I got a small baby at the house. If I want anything to get done, I got to get up early. Because my son, he get on this thing like, wow, I can't function. So I know for a fact what it's like to be a mother, trying to write a book, trying to finish a course. You got distractions. Your husband wants something to get done. I mean, it's a lot, but I got it done. Okay, and I definitely can attribute it to prayer. Okay, so while I was on the last bit of it, I think like probably like maybe the last 2-3 days in, you know, I realized there were some things that I wanted to change in my house, right? And God at the time was like, look, if you want this thing to change, you need to pray in the spirit. 30 days. So I'm like, okay. So I started praying 30 days. But I'm going to tell you this. Today, I got my spiritual download. And so he was like, you know, just shoot a video. Like, so when I named this, the podcast, I wasn't worried about no keywords or anything, but I still looked it up. So I see this other guy, and this is why I say God is funny, right? So I looked it up, and here's a Christian man that got a book called The Power of Consistency. Now, mind you, God just told me, title this, there is power in consistency. This man has a similar story, except he was locked up for 13 years. I never heard of this guy, never heard of his book, whatever. But I'm like, God, you funny. But I just had to put it out there, and I'm trying to tell you, like, you just got to be consistent in one thing. And I say this to say that God will give you ideas if you are struggling with anything and you need clarity. Okay, God will give you ideas, but you first have to be consistent. You first have to be consistent. And I decided to be consistent in one thing. And it started off with prayer. And let me say, everything else started to come towards me. So some of the good blessings that I received from consistently praying, because I started in June, okay, I wasn't looking for anything particular from God. All I was looking to do, okay, was commit to increasing my spiritual life. That was it. I didn't want anything from God. I wasn't asking for money, nothing like that, okay? But they said that he will give you the desires of your heart. And if you put his kingdom first, these things is going to happen. Okay, so while I was praying this morning, okay, he told me what I should do. It was clarity. It was clarity. More videos, but this is going to be like serving people. This is not about me. I'll share my testimony. And this was rough for me because you seen the tears. Okay. It was rough for me to share this with you because this is a tender part of my life. But I put it like this, that even when I spent time with my mentor, I did not envision that that I'll be married. There was no man in sight, okay? But I was abstinent that whole time, you know. And from when I was staying in the military, when I was at Fort Hood, my husband now, he called me out the blue on Facebook. He was like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was looking for him for a long time because he's not a social media kind of person. He's not one of them type of people. Okay, so it's crazy. He comes down here. He spent 6 months staying in a motel. We ended up getting married, and it's just like he came down for me that whole time, abstinent. Okay, but I ended up with a baby like a month after. Okay, this is a God thing. But I'm telling you, there's just power in consistency, real life testimony for it. Man, I just challenge you that if you're struggling in any area in your life, give it to God. Matter of fact, I'll tell you this for a fact. I'll guarantee it. 30 days consistently praying from God, you will hear from God consistently. Give it some time. After you finish praying, just wait. Listen, get quiet. If your life don't change in them 30 days, if God don't speak to you, something got to be wrong. I'm telling you for a fact. I'm telling you what I know. This is Denlyn Blake, and I'm out. Peace.